All right, everybody on Twitch, stand by. Everybody on YouTube, well, we're not quite there yet, so just hang on for that. We'll be there in just a second. Want to make certain that everything is working properly. Again, because we have had some buku audio issues in the last couple of days, let me just make certain that this is actually working here. For tonight, again, we have seen some very quiet conditions. It's actually not all that bad out there for right now. Not seeing too much of anything in the way of major amounts of heat coming up for the next few days after we get into around toward the weekend or so. See, okay, we are good to go there. Let me just make certain that everything's working over here. So far we are online, but are we hearing anything? That's the big question. This is live and direct from downtown Chattanooga. Okay, we are good to go. Surprising. Everything working better than it certainly did last night, so nice to see all that working there. All right, I'm Chief Meteorologist Austin Onek. You are watching live and direct from downtown Chattanooga, Tennessee, southeastern United States. I'm again on with Weather Overtime. This is our online video weather blog keeping you updated as to what is going on in regards to what's happening with the weather around the area. Let me update the date on YouTube here real quick, and then we'll be good to go. Want to make certain everybody's watching the correct broadcast. Thanks to what is left of Debbie, we may see some drier conditions, and with the assistance of a new cold front coming through, we will see what amounts to basically an Arctic blast for this time of the year. That's coming up later on. We're not talking about 30s or 40s. We're not even talking about 50s. Maybe. We may see some 60s out there. We'll talk more about that coming up here in just a little bit. Plus, we'll talk about the tropics and the fact that we have all kinds of other stuff going on farther out in the Caribbean. More on that in just a little bit. This is our weather blog. Again, we try to do this weeknightly. So thanks for joining us. If you're on Twitch or YouTube, stay tuned. We'll keep you updated as to what's going on in and around the area and for points beyond as well. If we do not get some rain in the next week, we are going to be, again, about half a foot behind rainfall. We're about 5.4 behind for the year, and we could use a little bit more because in the next several days, we average through the entire year about 11 hundredths, 12 hundredths of an inch per day, per month out of the entire year. That's what happens if you divide all of the rainfall up through the entire year. So every single day we don't get rain, we go about another 11 hundredths dry. Same thing for yesterday, same thing for the day before that with no rainfall. And it's been a dry month so far, just less than a week into the new month of August. We are only picking up 8 hundredths of an inch, and that puts us behind by almost 3/4 of an inch. That's not terrible. It's not great either. We could definitely use some more rain. We also, again, are well behind for the year. And if we keep on going the next several days, I would say by about this time next week, we could be about 6 inches below normal on the rainfall out there. What was our high temperature? Let me check on that real quick. Made it to 95. 4 degrees above the high, normal high, 3 degrees above the low. And this is, again, the record low temperature, 56. That was last set in 1948. That gives you an idea as to how chilly it can get around here in July and August. That's about the normal, the high 50s, and that's not too cool. But for this time of the year, that is teeth-chattering cold. That's about as good as it gets for any place around here. Heading off to school tomorrow, it is going to be, again, a very warm day starting off in the morning. There could be an isolated chance of a shower or thunderstorm in the afternoon and evening, and most of that back to the east of Chattanooga. So I don't think you're going to need to necessarily pack for a rainy day. But for those places that are going back to school tomorrow, Hamilton County students, teachers, principals, administrators, back to the classrooms tomorrow, and not the best weather for that as we see highs back in the mid to high 90s. So not much good news taking place there. Temperature at the airport with the Tomahawk crane and rigging camera in the background, mid to upper 80s with that extra dew point. Temperatures there in the mid to upper 60 degree range. So we have got some very moisture-laden air. The neat thing right now is that wind speed, the winds out of the northwest coming in again on the west side of what's left of Debbie, that is helping to kind of stir things up. So yes, it is humid, but with that breeze, it's actually not feeling too terrible out there for right now. A couple of nights ago with the high humidity and the low winds, not quite so much. So this is a welcome relief to take a look at, and hopefully again we'll continue to see a little bit better conditions out there as we go into the weekend. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Current temperatures at just about the top of the hour. We are back in the 70s and 80s. We are in the mid to high 90s in many locations. For grins and giggles, taking a look at the heat index, which again, it feels like 93 in Cleveland, 90 in Calhoun, mainly in the 70s and 80s elsewhere. A little cooler back over toward the eastern parts of the viewing area into the Appalachians, because that is where we're seeing the winds out of the north and clouds to block out the sunshine here thanks to Debbie pulling on through. And so temperatures are a little bit cooler on the east coast side of things with the clouds and the rainfall here. A little bit toastier back over to the west, the mid-south, Little Rock back into the mid to high 80s. And we will continue to see some pretty hot numbers into the rest of the forecast as we get into the next couple of days. So we will be watching that with a lot of interest. If you have any plans for outdoors, keep them, but be ready again to make sure that you are paying attention to what is going on the roadways out there. That could be a bit of a problem where it comes to getting stuck in hot conditions. Want to make certain your vehicle is up to date and ready to go as we see, again, those hotter temperatures continue for a while. And really not great news where it comes to worldwide temperatures. We are getting into the thick of summertime, so even places that don't usually see very warm conditions. This right here, what I'm about to show you, is very disconcerting. This is what we have to talk more about in the weather community in and around local areas as well as worldwide. We need to contact our elected leaders. We need to get leaders elected who understand the science of what is going on. The oceans are absorbing as much heat as possible, and that is lending itself to more powerful and more unpredictable tropical storms that can regenerate quicker, things like that. The continental U.S., pretty typical, again, all the way across, numbers not even in the triple digits, all the way across much of the United States. Triple digits out toward the Great Basin and into around Las Vegas. But watch what happens as we leave the United States, continental U.S., and head all the way back up to the Arctic Circle. This information comes to us courtesy of climatologist Brian Brettschneider. You can reach him at Climatologist49. He's up in Alaska, and he posted this information earlier today, and this is where we get the situation is getting worse by the day as these record highs continue to fall around the world. In Dead Horse, Alaska, what Mr. Brettschneider posted, quote, "No station in Alaska this far north has ever been warmer." Yes, it is summertime, but this should not be happening. This is very, very incredibly bad news for the climate. This is really, these things keep happening. And this is something that we really need to start paying attention to start dropping the temperatures. We're not paying attention as good as we can. This should be headline news right now. And I bring it to everybody to try to get more people to pay attention to what is going on. I know I'm going to have the naysayers and the poo-pooers out there saying there's nothing to worry about, the planet is fine, everything will cool off, we just have to wait for it. We cannot wait. Humans are causing more damage to the atmosphere, and we really need to pay attention to things like this. So this is unprecedented and exceptionally worrisome for something like this to be occurring, especially in this area, even if it's summertime, way, way, way up north around the Arctic Circle. This should not be happening. That's the most incredible thing, that we're not really paying attention to that. All right, for here, we are seeing a couple of things happening. The first thing is we don't really have a lot going on. The air is very smoky. We've got a lot of wildfire smoke out there, and we've got some clouds. We were expecting some of this rain to get a little farther west. That, again, does not appear to be happening for tonight, so very good news on that. Now, we have a couple more things happening at this time. We, of course, have Debbie, tropical storm, minimal tropical storm, able to sit right there on the coast, and air around low pressure rotates counterclockwise. So this is bringing in a lot of rain for the Carolinas, Georgia, and then eventually up toward Chesapeake Bay and into New England. So from Savannah to, say, Boston, Portland, Maine, the tri-state area around New England, you're going to be seeing some very ugly beach conditions over the next few days. Not to mention the fact the winds here have diminished, but it is still a tropical storm. And add to that for right now, it is now the center of circulation has left the land surface and is now over the Atlantic. While this doesn't mean panic mode or anything else, it does mean that it is back out in some ways over the waters. It is still getting a lot of dry air coming back in from the western circulation pattern. Eventually this is going to curve back onto the surface of the eastern United States, and that again is just going to be in the same place to draw in all that rainfall. So we do have the potential of some problems with this causing late beach vacations to be a problem here. Now we're also seeing at this time a couple of other things. Let me had to restart this here to pop off of this here. Let's take a look farther back to the north. We have two storm systems that we need to talk about. The first one right here over the Red River Valley through the Ohio Valley and just south of the Great Lakes. This is going to make its way back to the north, but it's going to run into this circulation around the storm, which is going to cause it excuse me, to kind of flounder in place. So there's really not a lot that this system is going to help us out with, but it might help to shepherd what's left of Debbie up toward New England. Now, this second storm system, this one starts to move our way as we go into the weekend. That one could be giving us some salvation from the heat and also help to kick what's left of Debbie away from the area and possibly out over the Canadian Maritime. So this one, weak and falling apart. This one, a little bit stronger, and that is going to head our direction, which could give us some much nicer weather. How much nicer are we talking about? Well, for right now, excuse me again, the good news is that we will be seeing the potential for a little bit less in the way of problems with heat. Now tomorrow, yes, it is going to be blazing out there, and maybe that isolated chance of a shower or thunderstorm will be possible. But we're talking, again, east of Chattanooga, and even then a less than 10% chance of picking up anything at this time. So next few days, notice the temperatures start off pretty blazing hot and then drop. Right, this is normal right about here, lower 90s. That's normal for this time of the year. As we go into the next few days, we continue that slide downwards into the weekend where numbers will be below normal. It's still going to be warm, it's still going to be humid, but it is going to be at least a little bit less problematic than what we have seen in the last few weeks, where temperatures have reached the triple digits and even farther than that, with the heat index numbers causing problems across much of the area for being outdoors. We're having a lack of rainfall. That's good for outdoor activities. That's bad because we're going to be seeing that hot conditions continue. So for two-a-day practices, whatever you got going on at the educational areas, marching band, football, outside baseball, softball, soccer, whatever else is going on out there, definitely want to make certain that you're keeping an eye on the current conditions. We don't see much of anything in the way of rainfall coming up. Friday, there might be the potential of some showers and thunderstorms, 10-15% coverage chance, and again, most of that back to the east of Chattanooga over toward the Appalachians. It depends on how far west what is left of Debbie decides to go. Now, here's what we're seeing for tonight. Again, going back to the tropics, we do have a lot to talk about here. Debbie is again a tropical storm, but just barely. Winds of 40 miles per hour. It was moving to the east-northeast about 5 miles an hour. This is a little bit older data, but the winds are still true. If this goes down to 39 and below miles per hour, that is where we will see it classified into a tropical depression, going down on the list from disturbance to area of investigation to tropical depression to tropical storm to hurricane. We're kind of going backwards here, and you could thank the land surface for that. You notice this drier air sweeping down over portions of Alabama, Georgia, and Florida, and that is starting to make its way into the core of the storm. So it's starting to kind of loosen up here a little bit. But notice also that some of this moisture wrapping around the west side, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, is coming in off the Atlantic and rotating around the northern section of the storm, wrapping back around to the area close to, again, Savannah, Georgia. And that is where we are picking up some of the heavier rainfall, and that's stretching all the way up the coast. A lot of feeder bands setting up here, so a lot worse conditions well back over to our north and down to our south and east, but on the northeast side of this system. Now, even though this is wandering offshore, does this have the chance of becoming a hurricane again? There's always that chance, but the conditions right now do not have it developing into anything else. So that in and of itself is good news. The other bad news is the idea that for right now, we will see the potential for a lot of heavy rainfall up and down the eastern coastal areas, Savannah, Charleston, all the way back out to the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and eventually all the way up to Chesapeake Bay, the Potomac, and into around New England. We're looking at the potential of 3 to around 7 to 10 inches of rainfall, depending on how strong this system keeps shoving the moisture on shore. So if you're heading anywhere, again, from Portland, Maine, down to about Savannah in the next 1 to 3 days, this is not ideal beach vacation weather. It's going to be windy. It's going to have a lot of riptides. It's going to have a lot of rain, maybe some thunderstorms, a lot of tornadoes over into Georgia and South Carolina this afternoon and this evening. So that is what you're going to have to deal with if you are moving in that direction. So I'd recommend a lot of caution, and I would really recommend paying attention to what's going on with the weather situation. Because if you're heading anywhere to where there might be a possible beach, anywhere in this part of the hemisphere, you're going to have to watch very carefully. A lot of folks going on that last-minute vacation before school starts in the next week, week and a half. We have another disturbance out into the Caribbean. Let me just make certain my graphic information here is correct, because this is getting to be about several hours old. Not getting any good news here. This disturbance where the X is showing that we are watching this system just north of South America, heading for basically down to areas off the coast of Nicaragua, El Salvador, and down toward Panama at first, and then moving on up to the north and to the west after that. That is where we see this particular system possibly going. But as of right now, the National Hurricane Center is only giving this a 10% chance of developing in the next 2 days and a 20% chance. It was a 30% chance, but now that has dropped, so we don't see much out of this. And so far, according to what we're seeing from the National Hurricane Center, there is not that much going on where it comes to anything involving anything off the coast of Africa and moving across the area of the ocean. So it is possible, yes, to get something started, absolutely possible at this time of the year, because we may see the potential of that happening and increasing over the course of the next several days. We also have what looks to be a pretty healthy amount of dust now making its way off the Sahara. Unfortunately, I deleted that graphic, but unfortunately for right now, we do have, again, more dust coming through, so that could do a very good job of blocking any hurricane development. Now, that being said, this is brand new information from the Climate Prediction Center. We take a look on the what can be considered sort of medium range forecasts, and this is where we start to see the problems developing in the next few days and weeks. We are seeing the possibility of an increase in possible storm development right off the Caribbean into the Bahamas, off the East Coast. this is where we will see the greatest possibility for development. Again, that is coming up on the second week of August. But watch what happens to this 40% red area. I'm going to run this forward so we go from here to here. Now, does that mean it's backing off? Probably not. It more than likely means that there's going to be more storms developing east of Bermuda and back to the west of Africa. And that could signal, again, a big upturn in the development of more storms developing out here. Now, hopefully the steering winds will help to take them north across colder waters, but it is possible for anything in the path of this from the Gulf to the North Caribbean to the United States East Coast, the Bahamas. This is where we really need to pay attention and be weather aware, because if we start getting that big uptick in storms, we are going to have to be very flexible on vacation, on business travel. You don't want to be heading into any place where those storms might be heading toward you. There's no point going someplace if you're just going to have to turn back around because a storm is heading your particular direction, and that could be a major travel headache. Even for a tropical storm, that could be, again, some very ugly conditions, so that is something that you really do need to plan on. Let's take a look. Oh, first of all, again, if you're just joining us, welcome to the show. This is Weather Overtime on YouTube and Twitch for Tuesday, the 6th of August. And so far, again, things are pretty quiet where we are. If you got questions about the forecast or any other information, drop them into the comments section on YouTube or Twitch. And thanks to all the new followers on Twitch. Nice to have all of you along on there. This is where it gets really also problematic in the next several days and weeks. The ocean surface, remember the ocean is trying to absorb all the extra heat from the atmosphere. It's kind of like having a hair dryer on top of a glass of ice water. The hot air shooting over the top of the ice water might not be pointing directly down to the ice water, but the air above that glass of ice water where that hair dryer is pushing that hot air away, some of that is going to help melt the ice, and that's exactly what we're seeing right now is all that hot air being pumped into the atmosphere. The ocean tries to absorb that, and look at some of these numbers. If you had temperatures of around lower, just about 80 degrees, that's sea surface temperatures, not the air above it, but the water itself, these temperatures here way above 80 degrees. So the ocean is just primed and ready to give out tons of energy to these storms. It's called rapid intensification. It happened with Otis all the way over toward Acapulco last year. Tropical storm to a Category 5 in 9 hours. That's all it took, and that was due to the warm water off the western Mexican coastline. So what we're seeing here is the Gulf, the hottest of all, with temperatures in the high 80s. There was a report last week before we had the approach of Debbie right at the mouth of the Mississippi. The Scripps Oceanography Institute found a temperature in the water of 95 degrees, and a lot of the temperatures close up here right along Tampa, St. Pete, back up toward the Panhandle and the Big Bend, close to 90. Again, this is rocket fuel for these storms, and that is why you need to be paying attention to the weather. If you are going to the beach anytime soon, anywhere in this area, if you are going to be doing anything outdoors here in the News 12 viewing area, you really need to pay attention to what's happening. We can get a leftover storm coming on through here very, very easily. If the steering winds had been right, Debbie could have made its way all the way up to where we are in and around Chattanooga. This is very ugly conditions, and the worst part about it is that it's primed and ready right now. When Beryl made its way from the Caribbean up into the Gulf and headed over toward Houston, usually these storms, when they have the rain and the wind and all the cross currents that you have beneath of all the swirling winds and the higher bands of energy, the winds moving faster toward the center than on the outside, but you still have those winds swirling around. They can help to push away some of the hot air, and the rain helps to cool off the surface, and usually you would see a track of cooler amounts of water at the surface. When Beryl moved through, there was no track because the water just instantaneously warmed back up again, and that was the worst portion of what we saw with Beryl happening. the evidence that the cooler waters below getting stirred up by the hurricane above can help to impede hurricane development, but only if we get that colder water coming up from the depths. The water is so warm and so deep in the first few dozen feet of the ocean surface that that cold water didn't even have a chance to get upwelled into the top of the surface, and Beryl's track, due to looking at the temperatures on the surface, didn't even show up as cooler temperatures. It was just absolutely, it was amazing, but it was also disgusting in its own way, in the fact that the ocean surface temperatures are so hot at this point that they can almost instantaneously regenerate. Even after a major hurricane like Beryl that got over Category 3, we could still see that happening here with another storm coming on through. So again, keep it tuned to News 12. We'll keep you updated on all of that. All right, let's do some extracurricular activity. We're going to have to wrap things up here. It's already 10:15, hard to believe, Eastern Time. Thanks a lot to News 12 viewer Chelsea Robinson for a beautiful sunset lit view on July the 9th. You can also see well over the horizon, looks like maybe a thunderstorm cloud there popping up. That is what is casting this shadow, crepuscular rays underneath the cloud surface. So you're looking at the underside of the cloud here, the sun's light reflecting off of it from beyond the horizon, and then looks like that thunderstorm cloud casting that shadow that you're seeing going across the underside of the cloud surface there. So not only are we getting a beautiful shot, we're also getting a little bit of some atmospheric optics going on, the colors and that crepuscular ray showing up. Thank you very much, Ms. Robinson from East Tennessee. If you've got pictures, weather-related, rainbows, tornadoes, hurricane-related, rain, showers, thunderstorms, as long as you take them safely. If you've got pictures, we'd love to see them and show them to everybody else. And all you have to do is drop them off at either email them to us, our website, wdef.com/photos, or you can, again, drop them off at our social media pages in the comments section. Please give us a description and a location if you would be so kind. Some of you have kind of forgotten that, and we would love to feature your picture, but we don't have a name or a location or what you were looking at. So you may have had some great pictures, but unless we have a description, we can't really tell anybody about it without making anything up. And we really don't want to do that if you took all the time and effort to send that to us. So please give us a description and a location. That would help us out rather a lot. Now, speaking of pictures, and if you think you're a pretty good photographer, and obviously a lot of our viewers have some pretty good talent when it comes to photography, these are some of the pictures that have been sent in to us in the last several months. And thanks to everybody for sending them in. If you think you've got what it takes to win an international competition, the World Meteorological Organization, the weather and climate arm of the United Nations, holds a calendar photo contest every single year. And this year's contest is open and it's active, and they are accepting your submissions. There are a lot of rules to what you can and can't submit, the size, the quality, the format. I think they accept JPEGs and PNGs. They do not accept a lot of other formats. So if you'd like to submit your picture, head to their website, the World Meteorological Organization, at WMO.int, and one of your pictures, you don't win any money, but to have your picture featured in a worldwide contest as a winner, that's not too shabby. So really cool to be able to see that. So get your pictures in as soon as possible. All right, a couple of astronomical events. Let's see, the Chinese space station, is that? No. Yes? No, it's already passed. Okay, so sorry about that. It was a very bright pass tonight, right going past bright star Vega in the constellation of Lyra. We do have a couple of other things to talk about. Number one of the biggest meteor showers of the year is already in progress. It goes from mid-July through about early September. It peaks next week, August 11 through 12. It is the Perseid meteor shower, so named because it seems to radiate out of the portion of the sky where the constellation of Perseus the hero is located. And about the time the peak of the meteor shower occurs next week, Sunday, Monday into Tuesday, again August 11th through the 12th, is roughly about that time frame. It'll be rising in the north and the east, so it should be neat to be able to see that. Get yourself to a dark sky location location, you should be able to see possibly around 100 meteors per hour, sometimes more, sometimes less. It depends on which part of the debris section left over that we go through, and these can be some very bright meteors. So if you have the opportunity, next week, the night of the 11th through the 12th, that is going to be, again, I believe, Monday and Tuesday, Sunday night and a Monday. Again, a great opportunity to go out and see some meteors. Again, dark sky is going to be your best bet. Take a lawn chair so you can lean back and watch instead of craning your neck upwards. That gets very uncomfortable after a short amount of time. So if you're laying back, hopefully you got the mosquito repellent. That'll come in handy, but get someplace where you can get away from city lights. That'll really help you out to see the fainter meteors coming on through. If you'd like more information, head to our social media pages. We have a ton of information listed there. We also have coming up this weekend, well, not we at News 12, but I like to post this information so that everybody knows what's going on. The Chattanooga Barnard Astronomical Society will be holding their next star party, weather dependent, again, if it's cloudy or too much rain or otherwise, and it looks pretty good this week, but if there's anything going on that is going to be a blocking of the view, they will probably have to postpone or cancel, and you'll find out more about that on their social media pages. This one will be held at Harrison Bay State Park at the Rec Hall parking area. It's totally free. You don't need to bring any equipment. They have the telescopes, they have the binoculars, they have all the great stuff out there. If you have a junior astronomer in the family, kid, grandkid, anybody else who might be interested, these are the folks to ask about telescopes and about what you can give somebody. The holiday gift giving season is coming up pretty soon, so this is something to really take a look at, to ask them about what would be a good spotting scope, a good telescope, a good pair of binoculars for a junior astronomer, an up-and-coming astronomer to use. And as an added bonus, in January, if I'm not mistaken, they have an annual how to use your new telescope session meeting. So a great opportunity, again, to see more. Again, that's at Harrison Bay State Park. More information at barnardastronomy.org. And thanks to everybody again for stopping by and for Barnard Astronomy to hold these events. It's really a cool thing to take a look at there. All right, so for our friendinroofing.com weather poll of the day, our garbage has a tendency to wind up in the ocean. If you take your watch and tick off a minute, another dump truck load of garbage has just entered the ocean all over the world. And that happens every minute of every day, of every week, of every month. And all of that stuff is floating around in the ocean. The top of the ocean surface is where a lot of the garbage accumulates. And it accumulates in these swirling pools where the currents move around but not necessarily through. So some places get these patches of garbage, otherwise known as a gyre. The biggest gyre on the planet, which is about the size, twice the size of Texas. Which ocean is that located in? The Arctic, the Indian, the Pacific, and the Atlantic. 2/3 of you basically said the Atlantic, and it is in fact in the Pacific. I believe that's halfway out there between the United States and Hawaii. Just tons of junk out there, 2 Texas-sized of that gyre. And that is really incredible to see. We'll have a new poll coming up at midnight, but you can vote at WDEF.com/vote now. We have sports polls, we have weather polls, we have news questions asking you how you feel about one topic or another. So we have a lot to talk about there, so definitely want to stay tuned and find out more, or you can just use the QR code on your screen to find out more details as to what may be coming up. And we'd love to have you vote in our poll, so please do so. Stop by again, WDEF.com/vote now to vote in our friendinroofing.com weather poll of the day. All right, I think that's going to do it. It's almost 10:30. We got to get ready for News 12 at 11. Thanks to everybody on Twitch for tuning in. Thanks to everybody on YouTube. We had about 13 views tonight. That's something we don't have all that often. Yes, I know I'm not in the millions or the hundreds of thousands, but we're doing our best just to give everybody around the Tennessee River Valley and Chattanooga, Tennessee, an idea as to what is going on with the weather, and we're here and available to answer questions. So if you tuned in tonight and liked what you saw, please let us know. You can email us for more details. My email address, lower portion of the screen, aonic@wdef.com, and you can reach all of us at News 12, including the sales department. If there's any businesses out there that would like to sponsor Weather Overtime, we would love to hear from you. WDEF.com is the place to go on that. We'll see again some less hot conditions over the next several days. Really looking forward to that. Chip Chapman will have more on his forecast bright and early, peak of the week Wednesday, starting at 5 a.m. So stop by for an update on the forecast, time saver traffic, all today's news. That's all available for you there. And again, please go to our website, on air, online. We'll try to give you the best weather forecast update that we possibly can. Live and direct from downtown Chattanooga, Tennessee, southeastern United States, I'm Chief Meteorologist Austin Onick. This has been the Tuesday edition, August the 6th, of our exclusive video weather blog, Weather Overtime. We'll see you again tomorrow night.